Hey there friends, Hector here from strongestech.com, and I'm going to be doing a new series starting today. And it's going to be on Mondays. We're going to be calling it Movement Monday. So each week I'm going to bring a new movement, new movement pattern to you. A lot of it's going to be body weight oriented, mobility drills, flexibility drills, body weight strength drills. So we're going to be going through different flows. Sometimes they may not be a flow, but sometimes they may just be one piece, like maybe focusing on, the hip or the shoulder or the ankle or something like that. So we're going to be kicking that series off effectively today. So we're going to be kicking off a series, like I said, Movement Mondays. And today we're going to be focusing on shoulder stability. So the muscles that surround the shoulder and the shoulder girdle that stabilize the shoulder, they're reflex driven. So there's nothing that we can do strength wise to get them to turn on. So essentially they should turn on reflexively. So without thought, without conscious thought, they should be able to turn on. So one of the ways that we do that body weight is through compression, okay? So by compressing the shoulder. So the shoulder girdle and the rotator cuff, the muscles that stabilize the shoulder, those muscles are activated in two ways, through compression and through distraction. So distraction is generally used with some sort of external load, like farmers carries with kettlebells, barbell. You have many different ways to do carries. Also a pull-up bar, even though that is technically body weight, but you're still using an external, device, right? An external tool to hang on, and that is distracting and trying to pull the shoulder out. That gets the shoulder to fire, the rotator, all the muscles that support the shoulder. So body weight, we're going to be doing compression, and that's usually being on all fours. Whenever we're on all fours, that gets the rotator cuff to light up, and it's going to help to stabilize the shoulder. So this is going to carry over into many different exercises. So if you love doing kettlebell swings and snatches, sometimes we can lose that stability of the shoulder by the shoulder coming unpacked because we've got some wiring dysfunctions going on either in the upper back, maybe it's the abs. There's several different things that can cause that. So for today's Movement Monday, we're going to be covering shoulder stability, and we're going to be doing it from some primitive patterns. We're going to be doing it from our hands and our knees, and then we're also going to do some mobility drills and then back it up with stability. So kind of the way the whole mobility, flexibility, kind of the way all that works is mobility is being able to actively move the joint in a specific range of motion, okay? Like being able to actively bring my arm up and back like this, or actively cross my legs. That is mobility, is actively moving a joint through a specific range of motion. Flexibility is having the extensibility, being able to extend the muscle to a certain degree. So that is generally passive, what we call passive flexibility or passive mobility. So you have to have passive first before you can have active. Okay, so we have to make sure we've got decent flexibility, which allows us to access our mobility and then from there taking it to our strength training exercises. So we have to have mobility first, right? Mobility or flexibility, right? We've got to have that first. Once we restore mobility to our particular joint, whether it's the shoulder, the hip, the ankle, the wrist, we want to make sure that we get it to stick and we get it to stay. And to do that, you need to reinforce it with static and dynamic motor control. And that's generally it starts from the midsection. So primitive patterns is a great way to execute that. So we're going to be transitioning over into a tiny little flow that we're going to be working on mobilizing the shoulders and then stabilizing the shoulders and stabilizing the midsection. So let's get started. Okay, so here we go. We're going to be moving into the mobility, and then we're also going to go into the stability. So one of the most effective ways to get started is breath. Breath is number one. So if we're not breathing properly, we're going to shut down and lock down a lot of the deep core musculature, and that can limit range of motion through the shoulders, hips, all the way down the movement chain. So we're going to be focusing on diaphragmatic breathing. So I think there's some crazy statistic, like we breathe like 26,000 times a day. I think it's pretty important that we learn how to breathe properly, right? So technically we would want to do this face down, like what we call crocodile breathing. That's one effective way to do it. Another effective way is laying on your back. But we're going to do it from this kneeling position here. And you want to imagine that kind of like you're filling up a pitcher of water. And you want to fill that pitcher of water from the lower belly and continue filling up that pitcher all the way up into the chest. So you're inhaling deep into the belly and you're filling up this pitcher down like this and out. Okay? And that is eventually going to create this ripple effect to where it works its way to the chest. So we don't want to initiate our breath with our chest. This is generally where we keep emotion and anxiety, all that kind of comes from breathing through our chest. And one of the downfalls of breathing through the chest is it tightens up the neck, tightens up the shoulders, because those are emergency muscles. Okay, so a great way to practice this is simply by placing one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly, and you're going to breathe in through your nose, out through your nose, and you want to keep your tongue on the roof of your mouth. Okay, and when you initiate that breath, you want to feel your hand on your belly move first, and then slowly you'll feel your hand on the top of your chest begin to move, because you want that breath to go from the bottom to the top. Okay, so you'll take, and I'm just going to do a couple of them, but I recommend you do this for about 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, see if I can turn to the side here a little bit. You can see my belly kind of extend out. And you'll go through this for about, like I said, about 3 to 5 minutes. This is really going to help to expand the rib cage. This is going to help to mobilize the thoracic spine, which has 3 actions. Your thoracic rotates, it flexes, and it extends. And you should be able to go through all 3 of those actions. So learning how to properly breathe is definitely going to help mobilize that thoracic area. So now that we've gone through that, next thing that we're going to go through is we're going to go through some very gentle shoulder mobility. And we're going to start with one pretty, none of this is, a lot of these exercises are like recycled, so I'm not creating anything new here. What we are doing is just putting them in a sequence to give us the most effective result to increasing mobility and shoulder stability. Okay, so really great one here is, again, staying in this kneeling position and going through an Egyptian movement. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm internally rotating this shoulder, and I'm externally rotating this top hand. So I'm looking to my palm. Okay, so what I want you to imagine is that as you're going through this rotation, I want you to imagine almost like you're trying to create space in the shoulder, like someone is kind of wringing out your shoulders like a towel. Like you get a wet towel and you wring it out like this, but what you're doing is you're wringing it out, but you're also pulling the towel apart. Okay, so imagine as you're rotating like this, I'm going to reach in that direction, and I'm going to reach in that direction, and I'm going to try to create this space. And I'm going to switch, and I'm going to look to that palm on this side, and I'm reaching that way, and I'm reaching this way, and I'm internally rotating and externally rotating here. And I'll do about 5. You can do about 5 per side. Okay? Next thing you're going to do here is you're going to go through what we call Smoothness. Okay? So it's basically a reciprocal reaching pattern. So basically I'm going to reach in opposite directions. The goal is not to be able to connect your hands together. We're just actively bringing this hand up behind the neck, and this hand's going into internal medial rotation this way, and bringing your hand up your back. Just reach. Don't try to dance your hands up to try to get your hands connected together. That's not the purpose of this drill. So we're just here, and left and right would be 1. And you're going to do about 5 reps per side. Try to keep your chest up tall. You're gonna want to, if you're limited through this movement, you're gonna want to kind of like flex like this. And that's actually making it harder for you to get your hands up your back and behind your head. So you want to stay as upright as you can. Hands out, reach, here, and reach. Now, a little subtle detail is, you remember that episode in Star Wars when they're kind of stuck in that like trash compactor and it's kind of closing in on them and they're actively trying to like push the walls away? That's what we're going to do here. So here, I'm not just, passively bringing my arms out. I'm actively trying to push those walls out, create space in the joint, and then I'm going to reach. Create space by pushing away, and then reach. And you'll go through that about 3 to 5 times per side, okay? Now that we've done some mobility, we're going to do one more step to really challenge us thoracically and to really challenge the upper back. So the shoulder girdle, the shoulder blades, they should be able to detract and depress down to be able to keep our chest up, okay? Which is why sitting down kind of reverses that position. It kind of pulls the shoulders forward. Well, we want to reverse that and keep our chest up. So we're going to do that. We can do the same exact exercises that we did, the Egyptian and the S movements. We can do those exact same movements, but now we're going to challenge ourselves and we're going to come into a prone position. So it's going to force us to keep our chest up. Now, you may lose some range of motion here. Don't be alarmed. Over time, you'll regain that back. But it's really going to challenge you thoracically here. So you can do the exact same movements, except now you're going to focus on keeping your chest up here. Okay? Inhale, exhale, reach in opposite directions, twist that towel. Three to 5 per side. Push the walls away. And that's how you can step that piece up. You may not be ready for the prone position. That's cool. Stay on your knees and go through this movement here on the knees. And then as you begin to increase your range of motion and you start to move better, you can go to prone and you can step up that intensity just a little bit. So now that we've got a pretty good extension of the thoracic and we're able to actively move our hands behind our head and do this internal external rotation, so we're increasing mobility because we're actively taking that joint through a range of motion. Now what we want to do is we want to back that up with some stability, core stability and stability of the shoulder. Very simple thing that we're going to do here. We're going to be down on all fours. I'll stay here. We're going to be down on all fours. All I'm going to do, this is so simple. All we're going to do here is you're going to be on all fours just like so, and you're going to elevate opposite knee and opposite hand. And you're going to do this. Just like this. Come down, and you're going to alternate. It's kind of like a bird dog, right? Very similar to a bird dog. Because what you're doing here is you're crossing midline, okay? I'm connecting this shoulder to this hip, this shoulder to this hip, okay? And it has to come together through the trunk. So this is doing a couple of things. One, it is challenging my midsection to resist rotary torque. So what is rotary torque? Rotary torque is the moment that I bring up this opposite arm and hand, this hand and this knee, if my body can't resist rotary torque, I will begin to like wobble and I'll begin this rotational movement, okay? So the crazy thing is you can't consciously fight that. If you elevate like this and you're kind of all over the place, there's really nothing that you can do to lock that down, okay? That movement, the moment you pick up your hand and your knee, your brain should have already anticipated that movement, and it should fire the muscles that need to fire to stabilize the joints to allow the body to go through its full range of motion, okay? So the moment that I do this, if I don't move, I've got pretty good rotary stability. So this is also getting this shoulder to fire, okay? Rotator cuff, the whole thing here, and it's getting my trunk to fire, okay? And I just do this. You can bring your hand to your shoulder, like so. Okay? You can do the old-fashioned bird dog, where you bring your hand out like this. Okay? If you want to spice it up from there, you bring your knees up off the floor. What that's going to do is that's going to remove stability from the midsection. Because when I'm on my hands and my knees, I have 6 points of contact here. My hands, my knees, and my toes. So the moment I do this, I still have this knee supporting my trunk. But the moment that I bring my knees up, I've taken away that layer of stability, and it's putting more stress on my midsection, and it's going to really create that rotary torque concept. And if I can stay stable there, then I've got really good rotary stability. But if I start to fall apart, then I need to back up and own this position here before I progress to this position. So once I'm here, I'm going to bring my opposite hand up, my opposite leg, and you want to hold it just to keep yourself honest. You don't want to display false rotary stability by doing something like this. Right? When we start to go fast, it's because you're trying to hide our imperfections. So imagine you're driving in a car and you're going, you're going 85 miles an hour and there's a speed bump, a little speed bump, and you plow past that speed bump. Are you going to feel it? Probably not, right? You'll feel it very little. But if you slow down to about 5 miles an hour, you'll feel each and every little bump, every speed bump, you'll feel everything. So the moment we start to go fast, that is our body telling us that we actually don't own that movement. And so backing up a step to the knees on the floor and going through this is really going to help to solidify and to own that movement. So sometimes you have to regress to progress. Okay, sometimes you got to regress the exercise to progress the exercise. So hopefully you got a lot of value out of that. That is how you can improve shoulder stability and shoulder mobility. So, okay friends, there you have it. That is our first episode of Movement Mondays, where we're going to be focusing on a new movement each week to improve our quality of movement. And today what we covered was shoulder stability and core stability. So the first thing we need to make sure that we improve is our mobility, right? So we come into the world with mobility, and then from there we have to earn our stability. So the moment that we increase mobility, whether it's in the shoulders, the hip, the ankles, or the wrist, we have to back it up with stability. So today, to recap what we went over, is we started off with breathing, and I highly encourage you, before you go through any kind of corrective strategies, before you go through any kind of flexibility movement, always start with breathing. Breathing is paramount. So from breathing, we went into shoulder mobility. We started to do some body-weighted movements like the Egyptian, and then from there we went into the S movement. From there, to progress it, you would go down into prone, and you do the same 2 exercises. This will challenge you thoracically. Then from there, we want to back up that new range of motion that we created, and we're going to back that up with core stability. And one of the movements that we did today, very simple, is an X movement, or you can call it a bird dog. There's several different ways you can work this. And that's essentially crossing midline. We're bringing up the opposite knee and the opposite hand, creating this virtual X, okay? And repeating both sides anywhere from 5 to 10 total repetitions. If you wanted to increase the intensity, all you would do is bring the knees up off of the floor, and that will increase that rotary torque. So rotary torque is the ability of our body to resist rotation. Okay, so the moment we bring up that knee and that hand, if we start to wobble all over the place, it means we have poor rotary stability. So if we bring our hand and knee up and there's really no movement, that means we actually have pretty good rotary stability. And then from there we can increase the intensity by bringing our knees up off the floor. And if you can master and own those two positions, you're ready to move forward into other primitive patterns and other body-weighted strength and mobility exercises, which we'll cover in future episodes. So hopefully you guys like that. Hopefully you got a lot of value out of that today. If you have a comment, if you have a question, leave it in the comment section below. Again, like I said, if you got value out of this episode, in the description details, I left a link to one of our upcoming ebooks called Mobility Secrets, where we'll be taking you step by step on how to improve your quality of movement, how to improve your flexibility and stability using body weight and kettlebells. So right now the product isn't available, but you can jump on the wait list by clicking on the link in the description below. So hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of that, and we'll see you next Monday for Movement Monday next week. So be sure to tune in, and I'll see you guys next week. Again, I'm Hector with StrongAsHeck.com.